The cold autumn rain pelted against the wooden dock as Matthew Trevor Rogers pulled his fishing boat toward the mooring. It was late in the day, and as storm clouds gathered over Osprey Island, Matt turned up the collar on his weatherproof jacket. "Glad I wore the heavy gear," Matt said into the wind. "Those clouds are going to drop the temperature even more. Might be snow before morning." The dark blue marine jacket wasn't designed for concealment, but its muted tone allowed Matt to blend into the coastal environment quite well, and it was completely waterproof. He was returning from an unsuccessful fishing expedition. Matt enjoyed fishing and most anything that got him outdoors, especially on the waters surrounding his privately owned island. He enjoyed the navigation skills needed for a successful fishing trip. Matt used the seafood he harvested both for personal consumption and to sell to restaurants on the mainland, but felt using modern fish-finding technology was cheating. Anyone can sit over a school with sonar and GPS, drop lines, and call themselves fishermen. He often argued to other commercial fishermen. Try finding the fish through water temperature, bird activity, and understanding seasonal patterns. It gives nature an even chance and proves how skilled you are. Matt owned Osprey Island, which was located off the coast of Maine, situated in an area known as the Mid-Coast region. It was a 240-acre island that had been in his family for more than 70 years. The land had mostly rocky shores, dense pine forest covering the center, a natural harbor, and several open meadows. He moved easily across the slippery dock, his footsteps nearly silent despite his size. For a man who was 6 feet 2 inches, Matt was as quiet and deliberate as a predator on the hunt. His navigation skills and movement across difficult terrain had been learned during his time with the Marine Corps and honed by years of living on the island. Matt's lean, trim build, dark eyes and hair, and his naturally weathered complexion, made even darker by outdoor exposure, told of his years of service and outdoor life. Even now, 5 years after his discharge, he maintained the physicality of an active Marine. Matt smiled as he walked back to the old fisherman's house, thinking of the stories about how this island had come into the family's hands. "This place feels like a part of me, more than just home," Matt thought. "More so than that apartment we kept in Boston." Matt's great-grandfather had acquired the island during the Great Depression in 1935. Things had been tough across the country, and William Rogers had been looking for a fresh start after losing his shipping business in Boston. The Rogers family settled on the island where not many would notice or care that they were starting over with almost nothing. William quickly set up a homestead and went about making a life. He knew that he needed cash to approach the bank that actually owned the island they were squatting on. William thought, considering the times, that if he could offer a good down payment, the bank would sell him the land on credit. He was damn certain that once he had legal title, he could make a go of island life. There were plenty of fish in the waters surrounding the island, and lobster could be harvested from the rocky underwater outcroppings. These weren't just for selling. They were food on the table for his family. He took to running traps for pelts and fur in winter. William would begin trapping in late fall when the animals had grown their winter coats, and he would stop just before the spring thaw before they lost those heavy pelts. Money was tight, but the general store in Rockport would give credit in the store for mink, beaver, and fox pelts. Sometimes he even got cash money. Another cash crop for the Rogers was the bootleg liquor William made. He had a homemade stillback in a hollow, and the spirits he produced were of good quality and highly prized. Prohibition had been repealed 2 years earlier, but the coastal people couldn't or wouldn't pay the higher price for store-bought liquor with its heavy taxes. There was a tax on liquor made by law-abiding distilleries, and most of the so-called islanders didn't care for the government or their agents, the G-men. There had been more than a few confrontations between the revenue agents and the free-willed moonshiners in the coves and inlets of the Maine coast. The tax-free illegal liquor gave the coastal people a well-appreciated alternative. Finally, after a year and a half, William had put together a little over $400, which for the times was a large sum of money. He made the day-long journey by boat into Rockport to buy the island and bring back some supplies. The small coastal town with no more than 2,000 people in it was the nearest market hub. William went to talk to Theodore Barclay, the banker who controlled the deed to the island. That island is worth more than the $2,000 you offered, Mr. Rogers, Barkley stated after hearing William's offer. Why should I take less than the property is worth? Yes, sir, you're right, William replied. That island is probably worth more, but not right now. This depression, as the government calls it, ain't going to be over anytime soon. And how much are you making on the land right now? I'll give you $30 a month until the loan and interest are paid off. Seems to me it's a matter of a bird in the hand against one in the bush that you may never catch. William could see Barkley arguing with himself. Look at it this way, Mr. Barkley. If I pay you for a few months and then can't anymore, you can take the island back. William held up the $400 and added, at least you got something out of the deal instead of the land sitting there making you nothing. Barkley revised his first impression that William was just an uneducated island drifter. The man might be right, Barkley thought. I don't see this depression ending in the foreseeable future. In spite of the prattle the federal government is spouting, he mused, staring at William for about a minute. I believe we have a deal, Mr. Rogers, Barkley said, holding out his hand for the money. I'll just take your down payment to the vault. Reckon I'd like a piece of paper that tells about the deal we made, William replied. I'd like a receipt for the $400 as well. This man is no fool, Barkley thought. He took a piece of foolscap and handwrote 2 copies of the terms and penalties of the mortgage. He signed both contracts, got William's signature, and gave him a copy. You've bought yourself an island, Mr. Rogers. Reckon so, William agreed. See you next month with your payment. He left the bank, went to the general store, and got his supplies. He loaded his boat and sailed all day back to his island. The island had been passed down from father to son. Matt inherited it from his father, Trevor, 5 years earlier when he was 32. His parents were killed in a boating accident during a storm, and the property was willed to Matt. Trevor Rogers had used the place as a vacation home. He had solar power installed on the island and had the well piped into the fisherman's house. Trevor and his wife did a little fishing and gardening, but mostly used the old island home as a getaway from the hustle and bustle of the city. The fishing grounds around the island were leased out to a local commercial outfit. Matt changed that when he became the owner. He gave the commercial fishing operation notice that the lease would run the current season and one more, and then would not be renewed. Matt did some major renovations on the old house, rebuilt the dock, and turned the property into a self-sufficient homestead where he could live year-round. Topping a small rise, Matt looked down at his cabin at the edge of the pine forest. A light wind-blown mist had started to fall, and in the gathering dusk, the lights from the 2 windows on the rear of the cabin glowed warmly in the coming night. A column of smoke rose from the river stone chimney. The smile on his face turned into a full grin. Sam must have the fireplace going, Matt thought. Bet she's got supper on the stove too. I sure hope so, 'cause I'm hungry after that time on the water. Before starting down the slope, Matt looked over the 2 halves of the island separated by the hill he stood on. He had a deep sense of belonging. He worked on the mainland periodically, doing security consulting based on his military experience, but his heart and his home were here on Osprey Island. Matt started down the gentle slope to the cabin, his grin broadening even more as he thought about how he and Sam had met. He'd gone to a coastal tourism expo on a Friday to check out some marine equipment. She had been the engaging woman promoting a sea kayaking tour company. Samantha Wells. Matt read her name tag aloud and smiled at her. His interest was more in the woman than the kayak tours. He had his island for his excursions and needed nothing more. What he did want was to get to know Samantha better. Yes, sir, she said, shaking Matt's hand. And you are? Forgot my manners, Matt replied. Excuse me, I'm Matthew Rogers. Matt to my friends. Let me tell you about Atlantic Adventures, Samantha began, explaining the wonders and adventures available. Atlantic Adventures operates along the entire Maine coastline. We offer guided sea kayaking tours, ranging from half-day excursions to week-long island-hopping adventures. Our specialty is the Penobscot Bay region, where we explore hidden coves, remote islands, and get close to wildlife like seals, ospreys, and sometimes even whales. Matt didn't fully concentrate on what she was saying, but he watched her with great interest. She's tall, he thought. She's got to be 5 feet 9 inches or 10 inch. Samantha was athletically slender with long auburn hair and big blue eyes. You would have to call her striking rather than pretty, he continued his thoughts. All in all, a very nice package. Our experienced guides are all certified in first aid and water rescue. We provide all necessary equipment, including stable, easy-to-paddle sea kayaks, spray skirts, paddles, and personal flotation devices. Our overnight trips feature camping on pristine islands. With gourmet meals prepared by our staff, Samantha gave what was obviously a prepared speech, but delivered it with depth and enthusiasm. As she gave her scripted presentation, Samantha found herself attracted to the tall, ruggedly handsome man standing in front of her. He looks like he spends more time outdoors than he does in the city, she thought. Samantha didn't want Matt to leave just yet, so she handed him a special full-color brochure showing pictures of Atlantic adventures. There's a voucher in there for a 20% discount, she said. Matt glanced at the brochure and handed it back to Samantha. Miss Wells, I'm really not interested. Sam, she corrected. My friends call me Sam, she said, smiling at Matt. Why don't you want to sign up for a tour? I have my own island in Penobscot Bay, Matt replied. I've got almost 240 acres and plenty of coastline with its own hidden coves and wildlife. I've even got a family of ospreys nesting on the north side of my property. My place has several freshwater springs and a protected harbor. He smiled and added, You'll have to let me show it to you. Sam returned his smile. I'd have to know you a lot better before I'd go traipsing off to a private island with a stranger. We can remedy that problem, Matt said. The expo closes on Sunday. I'd like to take you to dinner, say on Monday evening. We can begin the getting to know you process. Why wait? Sam asked. I get off at 5 today. The sooner we start the process, as you call it, the sooner it will be completed, and the sooner I get to visit this island of yours. Smiling, he said, See you at 5. That dinner led to more time together. Sam and Matt would date at least twice a week, more when Sam wasn't working at an outdoor or travel expo out of town. Matt found that Sam was more than just a pretty guide for Atlantic adventures. She had grown up in a fishing family in Bar Harbor, Maine, and had a bachelor's degree in marine biology and a certificate in outdoor leadership. Her goal was to eventually run her own ecotourism company. Almost 3 months to the day after they met, Sam got to see what she called Matt's Island for the first time. Matt had improved and renovated the building to modern standards, but kept most of the historic features. The house was a classic Maine fisherman's cottage, expanded over the years into a comfortable year-round home. The building had 2 separate parts connected by an enclosed breezeway. Matt had built walls for this walkway with a few windows so you could get from one section of the house to the other without being exposed to bad weather. Across the breezeway, the second section of the home held a master suite, 2 additional bedrooms, and a guest bathroom. Matt seldom had visitors to the island, but when he did, he wanted them to be comfortable. He had updated the bathrooms and plumbing. Matt had a second well dug to ensure that his house had enough fresh water, and he kept the old-time hand pump in the kitchen to preserve a bit of history. The main house faced west, so you could sit on the large front porch and watch the sunset from one of the 2 classic rocking chairs. The rear of the house, with its own porch, also had 2 rocking chairs to view the sunrise over the bay to the east. This main section of the building was actually one very large open room. It contained the almost gourmet kitchen, a large eating area that still had the old farm table in it, and an area in the front of the building that was like a huge family room. Tucked against a side wall was a bathroom. Sam fell in love with the old fisherman's house and the island it sat on. The story of how the island came into Matt's family intrigued her, and she quickly showed Matt that she was as much at home on the water as he was, sharing a love for the outdoors. With her hair pulled back into a ponytail and little makeup, she seemed like part of the island. She helped manage which tourism expos Atlantic Adventures would attend, along with a few other adventure companies. If she wasn't doing an expo, Matt would pick her up as soon as he finished work on Friday, and they'd head to the harbor where he kept his boat. It was about a 45-minute ride to the island, depending on the weather. The first week in November, Matt and Sam sailed to the island. The fishing season was winding down, but Matt planned to bring in one last good catch to sell to the restaurants before winter set in. Work schedules had prevented him and Sam from coming to the island earlier in the month. Matt carried in some wood for the stove, while Sam put away the supplies they had brought with them. They planned on staying for 4 or 5 days. If I get a good catch the first day or two, we'll go hiking or exploring around the island, or just enjoy being out here away from everything, Matt told Sam. Is there a doubt that you'll have a successful trip? Sam asked, pretending to be shocked at the concept. Matt picked up his handcrafted fishing spear and replied, using this for nearshore fishing instead of just dropping nets gives the fish a better than even chance. Sam giggled and ran across the room to jump into Matt's lap. You're smart enough to make me fall in love with you, and that's good enough. That's right, Sam. I do love you, Matt said as he reached into the pocket of his marine jacket and pulled out a ring box. He opened it and held it up to Sam. Will you marry me, girl? Her answer was a squeal of pleasure and a kiss she placed on Matt's lips. Hours passed before they remembered to eat dinner. I'm heading out at first light in the morning, Matt said as they got ready for bed after a shower. Going to try for striped bass near the south point. It'll probably be late afternoon or maybe even dusk before I get back. Of course, if I get a good haul, I'll be back sooner. As Matt hiked back from the dock, his thoughts were on Sam, but the clouds opened up and a sudden downpour snapped him back to reality. Better get inside, he thought, noticing the weather shift. He stepped on the back porch, taking shelter from the rain. Matt grabbed a soft, dry towel from a peg on the wall and wiped down his fishing spear and the net bag he had crafted. He had made the net bag himself from marine-grade material, and it held a dozen lures and hooks for various types of fish. His fishing spear was custom-made, designed for spearfishing in the shallows around the island. After wiping the water off his gear, Matt hung everything on pegs along the back wall, letting them dry at room temperature. He unbuckled his utility belt, which held a small waterproof pouch and diving knife, and hung it as well. After wiping the mud off his boots, he entered the house. Inside, he saw Sam sitting at the kitchen table with her head down, her hair hiding her face. But when she looked up, Matt saw a red handprint on her cheek. He took 2 steps toward her before noticing the 4 armed men standing by the door. The biggest of them held a .45 pistol aimed directly at Matt. That's far enough, buddy, the man with the pistol ordered. He motioned with the gun. Join the little lady at the table. Matt sat down next to Sam after checking she was otherwise unharmed. There's no money to speak of in the house, Matt said calmly. The keys to my boat are in it. Take the boat and supplies and leave us be. The big man shook his head, smiling. You don't understand the situation here, buddy. He introduced himself and the others. That's Decker, Carter, Morrison, and I'm Wilson. We're your worst nightmare. Matt assessed each man quickly. Decker was gaunt, almost skeletal with white hair. Carter was short but broad, and Morrison had a wild look in his eyes. Wilson, towering over them all, stood at 6 feet 4 inches, exuding an air of cruelty despite his almost friendly demeanor. So what do you want? Matt asked, his mind racing, thinking of how to protect Sam. Ever read a short story called The Most Dangerous Game? Wilson asked. Matt nodded. Sam remained silent. It's about a rich man who hunts another man on his private island, Wilson explained. I've hunted every big game in the U.S., Canada, Alaska, you name it, but I'm bored. After reading that story, I decided I'd hunt a different kind of prey, people. And you too will be my next challenge. Why us? Matt asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I needed a suitable hunting ground, Wilson said. When I was scouting locations along the coast back in September, I spotted your island. When I asked around in Rockport about private islands, I heard about a former Marine living out here alone with his girlfriend. That got me interested, so I did a little investigating. He grinned menacingly. And here we are. Your island is miles from the nearest town, and nobody comes around uninvited. So I thought this would be a great out-of-the-way place to try my little experiment. After the hunt, assuming you're successful, what then? Matt asked, stalling for time. I think this is a perfect area to continue our hunts, Wilson answered. We will find other candidates and bring them here to continue our little entertainment. That story ends with the hunter becoming the hunted and losing the game, and his life, Matt offered. Yes, that is the way the story ends. But this is real life, and that won't happen, Wilson bragged. The story was about one man hunting another, Matt said, motioning toward the other 3 men. What about them? I wanted to share the thrill of the hunt with my friends, Wilson replied. Tomorrow morning at dawn, you will be given an hour's head start. Then we will come after you. What about Sam? The young lady will be the prize for the man who kills you. Wilson leered at Sam. I certainly hope I am the winner, he laughed and added. Of course, if I win, I'll share my trophy with my friends, and I expect them to do the same for me. Matt frowned, but Wilson pointed his pistol at him and Sam. None of that now, he ordered. You and the girl get over on the couch. Decker, tie them up. Don't make it too tight. We want our prey to have feeling in his hands and feet tomorrow morning. Wilson smiled again and added, After all, we want to be sporting. The painfully thin Decker used a rock climber's nylon rope to first secure Matt, and then did the same to Sam. Now I suggest you get some rest, Wilson said. The hunt begins at dawn. Will the prey be allowed a weapon? Matt asked sarcastically. I have no intention of one of us getting hurt if you should get lucky, so no, you will be unarmed. Wilson, Decker, and Morrison went through the breezeway to the bedrooms, leaving Carter to guard the prisoners. Matt and Sam watched and talked in whispers when Carter wasn't paying attention or went to the bathroom. They discussed plans and options. Still awake 4 hours later when Decker came to relieve the watch, after Carter left, Decker went to the stove, got the coffee pot, and poured himself a cup. While he was occupied doing that, Matt leaned close to Sam's ear and whispered, No matter what, I will come back for you. Sam looked back at Matt and smiled softly. I know you will, she replied, leaning in closer to Matt and kissing him. Just don't get yourself killed. They're not good enough to catch me. So you do what you have to do to stay alive, and I will come for you. Sam seemed to gain strength from Matt's words and nodded. All too soon, Matt could see the sun beginning to rise. Wilson, Decker, and Carter joined Morrison in the kitchen. After getting coffee, Wilson pulled his gun and sent Decker to untie Matt. Let him stretch his legs before we send him on his way, he ordered. The hunters allowed Matt to take a long drink of water and pushed him toward the back door. You'll have a 1-hour head start from the time we put you out the door, Wilson instructed. We won't watch where you go, but in an hour, we will track you down. Matt started to say something to the big man, but Wilson held up his hand. You now have 59 minutes. Matt stared at Wilson for a few seconds, turned, and stepped out onto the back porch. Wilson slammed the door behind him with a grim smile. Matt grabbed his fishing spear, net bag, and utility belt from the pegs on the outside wall. Good thing they didn't check the back wall, he thought as he left the yard at a ground-covering lope. 10 minutes later, Matt settled behind a huge granite outcropping on a hill overlooking the cabin. The rain had stopped during the night, but the low-hanging dark clouds began to drop a gentle snow about 30 minutes after he had been forced out of the house. Wilson, Carter, and Morrison stepped out onto the back porch. Wilson pointed to the path leading down to the shore, and the men started across the clearing. So much for an hour head start and being sporting, Matt thought. If this snow gets heavier, it will be harder not to leave a trail for them to follow. He watched as the men went over the small rise and started down toward the shore. Matt tightened the laces on his waterproof boots, which allowed him to move silently across the island's terrain, and waited a few minutes to make sure the men were gone. He had only seen 3 of the hunters. Decker must have been left behind to guard Sam, Matt thought. Slowly and carefully, he made his way down the hill to the back of the house. Matt took a very quick peek through one window and saw Decker sitting at the kitchen table facing the front door with his head down as he played solitaire. Sam was still sitting on the couch, staring at Decker, but she wasn't relaxed. Her hands were still tied, but she dropped her feet off the couch to the floor and rushed Decker as Matt watched. Decker picked up a pistol from the table and backhanded Sam, knocking her to the floor. He pointed the pistol at her head and yelled at her. Matt readied his fishing spear and started toward the door. He was pretty sure he could strike before Decker could get turned around. As he touched the door, Matt heard one of the other men coming back down the trail, yelling over his shoulder that he would get the binoculars. Before Matt could enter the house, a rifle bullet hit the back wall near his head, and immediately afterward, he heard the sound of the shot. Decker turned to face the noise, bringing his pistol to bear on the door. Having lost the advantage, Matt turned and sprinted into the trees near the corner of the house, away from Carter, who was coming down the hill. Decker came out of the house and fired a couple of rounds in the direction of Matt's escape. Matt knew he could have taken one of the men, but he doubted he could handle both of them. If he broke through the door and took Decker down, he would still have Carter and the others to contend with. It would have turned into a siege with him and Sam imprisoned in the house. If he took out Carter, Decker would have had a chance to shoot Matt, or, indefinitely worse, to harm Sam. Even if he did get both of them, they would have to run. Sam was capable, but she couldn't keep up with him across the rugged terrain, and they both would end up captured. There would be another time, he swore to himself. Wilson and Morrison came down the hill, meeting up with Carter and Decker, who had come out onto the porch. What happened? Wilson asked first Decker and then Carter, who explained Matt's appearance back at the cabin. Looks like our boy is trying to be clever, Wilson said. Okay, stick to the girl and stay alert, Decker. The rest of us will continue the hunt. Pointing at the woods Matt had disappeared into, he directed Morrison to circle around from the right, and Carter was sent to the left, while he took the middle. Stay sharp, and we'll catch him between us. If you spot him, shoot twice quickly, and the other two will come to you. Understand? Morrison and Carter nodded and turned to head back into the woods. After a minute, Wilson followed directly behind them, carrying his rifle at the ready that he thought the prey would run now and try to escape. Wilson was wrong. Matt had found a place to watch his pursuers until he knew what they were doing. He saw them split up, and, after a few minutes, he followed Morrison's trail. Matt saw that the hunter was following a game trail, thinking Matt would have used it to gain speed in his escape. Matt looped around Morrison and got a couple of 100 yards in front of him. The snow had gotten heavier, but still wasn't sticking yet except in open areas. He stayed under the trees as much as possible to avoid leaving footprints. There was an old abandoned eagle's nest in a tall pine beside the game trail. Matt climbed the tree with practiced ease and waited in position above the trail. Morrison held his rifle in front of him, ready to bring it to bear if he saw his prey. He heard a rustling above him and looked up. Before he could complete the movement, strong arms dropped down from a branch, circling his neck, and a knife pressed against his throat. He tried to struggle, but was shaken like a rag doll. Be really quiet now if you want to live, Matt ordered. Drop your rifle and kick it away. Morrison hesitated, feeling the knife lightly slide across his neck, leaving a very shallow cut that began to bleed immediately. Do as I say, or I'll finish the job, Matt added. Morrison followed orders. Matt kicked the back of Morrison's knee, and the man dropped to the snow-dusted ground, pushed onto his stomach. His hands were pulled one at a time behind him, and Matt used a zip tie from his utility pouch to secure Morrison. He used another tie on Morrison's feet. Matt pulled Morrison's feet up and connected his arms and legs together with a third zip tie. That ought to hold you, Matt offered. He cut 2 long strips from the man's jacket, pushing one strip into Morrison's mouth and using the other to tie the gag in place. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back for you, Matt said, patting the man on the shoulder. He picked up the rifle and hid it well off the trail. Matt didn't want to use the gun because it would alert the others. He left, heading east. The light breeze that had come up made more noise than he did moving through the woods. Carter stopped to catch his breath. The hill he had climbed was steep with obstructions of brush and downed trees. He sat down on a log after brushing the snow off and took out a cigarette. As he started to light it, he felt a sharp point pushed against the back of his neck. Slowly turning his head, he looked behind him and saw Matt with a fishing spear pointed at his face. Toss the rifle, Matt said in a soft voice. Carter did as he was told and was pushed face down onto the ground. His hands, feet, and mouth were secured just as Morrison's had been. Matt hid Carter's rifle as he had done with the first one. Now I'll go find your friend. Suddenly Matt heard a rifle shot and the hiss as the bullet just missed his head. He quickly turned and, in one motion, brought his spear up and threw it with deadly accuracy. The spear, A carbon fiber shaft with a razor-sharp barbed tip flew from Matt's hand, covering the 30-foot distance in less than a second. The impact of the missile just below the breastbone drove Wilson to his knees. The spear tip protruded from his back. Wilson looked down at the shaft and then up again. He gave a mocking salute and fell over. "No need to tie this one," Matt said, turning and, like a ghost of the woods, slipping through the trees back toward the fisherman's house. Matt slipped onto the back porch and peeped into the window. Decker was at the table again, but had his back to the wall. He held his pistol, bracing it on the table, nervously looking at both the front door and the back one. Stepping to the side of the door, Matt knocked. He saw Decker jump up and point his pistol at the back door. "Decker." "Oh, it's Matt Rogers," Matt called out, disguising his voice to sound like Wilson's. "Morrison and Carter are secured up on the ridge. Rogers wasn't as lucky. He's up on the ridge too, but I had to take care of him. I've got the girl." Matt's voice quivered and rose in pitch. "Decker, if you hurt her, I will make you regret it," Matt responded in his own voice. "Leave your pistol and come outside. I give you my word I won't hurt you. What are you going to do to me?" Decker's voice was full of fear. "I'll take you, Carter, and Morrison to the Coast Guard," Matt said, waiting a few seconds before speaking again. "Come on, Decker. You can't hold up forever. You've got to sleep sometime." Decker argued. "That's true, but you'll never know when I sleep. All I have to do is check on you now and then." Decker looked longingly at the front door, but hesitated. If Wilson and the others had been taken by this guy, he thought, I don't stand a snowball's chance in hell. Making up his mind, he laid the pistol on the table, moved away, and got down on the floor. Before he could call out, Matt came through the door with a knife in his hand. He picked up the pistol from the table, sticking it in his waistband. He went to the utility closet and got 3 more zip ties, having used all he had on Morrison and Carter. Matt put his knee in Decker's back and secured the man like the others. Then he went to Sam, using his dive knife to cut the ropes holding her, and helped her to sit up. "Are you okay?" he asked. Sam nodded, rubbing her wrists and stretching her legs to get the circulation back. "What about the others?" she asked. "Like I told Decker, 2 of them are hog-tied in the woods." Matt gave her a grim smile. "I had to deal with Wilson." "Good. The scumsucker got what he deserved," Sam replied. Matt looked closer at Sam. The left side of her face still showed bruising from the first slap, while the right side was swollen. There was a small cut just at the end of her eyebrow, and the ugly colors were obvious. "Let me get a cold towel for your face," Matt suggested and walked to the kitchen sink. As he left her, Sam got to her feet and, limping a little, made her way to where Decker lay on the floor. Drawing back her foot, she kicked him 3 times. "How does that feel, you little creep? You thought you could use me for your plaything, didn't you?" She started to kick him again, but Matt put his arms around her and pulled her away. "Settle down, young lady," he said with a short laugh. "I thought I was the deadly hunter, but you're really mad." All he talked about was what he and the others were going to do to me. Sam leaned into Matt's arms and asked, "What are we going to do now?" "We can't call the Coast Guard. We don't have a landline phone, something you refuse to allow on the island, and our cell phones don't get reception out here. We'll take the boat, go to Rockport, and tell the Coast Guard what happened. Then they can follow us back and pick up the garbage," Matt grinned and added. "As far as a landline goes, it would cost a fortune to get one installed this far out. And even if we could, I came here to escape civilization, not to bring it with it. I like having solar power, but that's about all I'll stand for. You ready?" Sam nodded. "Then let's go to town." Before they left, Matt wrapped some ice cubes in a towel so Sam could reduce the swelling on her face. "Howdy, Matt." "Hello, Sam," Coast Guard Lieutenant Commander James Sullivan said. "What brings you to the harbor? It isn't your normal day for a supply run." Seeing Sam's face for the first time, he asked, "What happened to your face?" "You best get over to Dr. Reynolds," Lieutenant Commander Sullivan said. He knew everything that went on in his jurisdiction and was upset that a young woman he considered a friend was injured. He had been in command of the Rockport station for over 8 years and was such a favorite of the people in the coastal town that most just called him by his first name rather than his rank. He was the exact opposite of the stereotypical Coast Guard officer. Over 6 feet tall with a lean, trim, muscular body. His hair now had a little gray in it, but his eyes were still keen and as sharp as a laser. One look into those eyes made people realize this wasn't a man to cross. Had some trouble out at my place, Matt answered, explaining what had happened, with Sam chiming in several times. 3 of the 4 men are trussed up back at the island. You said there were 4 men. Where's the 4th one? Sullivan asked. He shot at me, and I had to take care of him, Matt answered. He's up on the ridge too. Sounds to me like they picked the wrong man to hunt, Sullivan said. Y'all get Sam over to the docks. When you're ready to go back, me and my team will follow you there. There wasn't much that Dr. Reynolds could do for Sam. He examined her, cleaned the cut on her face, and closed it with a small butterfly bandage. It won't leave a scar, so don't worry. Here's some pain pills if it gets to hurting too bad, Reynolds said. That cold compress is about all we can do, but you're going to look like a raccoon for a spell. Arriving back at the island, Matt and Sam ignored Decker, who was still hogtied on the living room floor. They made and ate lunch, as neither had had anything to eat since their adventure had begun. Hey, don't I get something to eat? Decker asked in a whiny voice. No, you don't get something to eat. You're lucky you can still breathe, Matt replied. Shut up until the Coast Guard gets here. After eating, Matt went into the master bedroom. In the large closet was a hidden door to a gun safe that contained Matt's weapons. He cleaned and carefully stored his fishing spear on its holder. Matt took his personal weapon, a Glock 21.45 caliber pistol, the holster designed for it, and clipped it to his belt under his rainproof jacket. He put on a wide-brimmed waterproof hat and started toward the back door. I'm going to bring Morrison and Carter down for the Coast Guard, he explained. I'll go with you, Sam offered. Matt shook his head, pointed at their prisoner, and handed Sam Decker's 9mm. Keep an eye on our guest here. If Sullivan gets here before I get back, tell him what I'm doing, and he'll have more company for the trip shortly. You be careful, Sam ordered. I don't want anything to happen to you. Matt pulled her in for a hug and then went out the back door. He hiked up the ridge to where he left Morrison. The man was lying on his side, soaking wet from the rain and snow, shivering from the cold. Matt cut the zip tie holding Morrison's hands and feet together and cut the one securing Morrison's feet, leaving his hands tied. Matt pulled back his coat and showed his prisoner his weapon. You're going to walk down the hill in front of me, Matt said. If you try anything or try to run, I will shoot you and leave you to rot. Understand? Morrison nodded. Say it, Matt ordered. I understand, Morrison said. Matt turned him down the hill, and the 2 men slowly made their way back to the fisherman's house. Climbing onto the porch, Matt called out, It's me, Sam. He opened the door and, grabbing Morrison's arm, drew him into the kitchen. Sit down next to Decker on the floor, he said. Morrison awkwardly sat down, and Matt went to the utility closet to bring out a few more zip ties. Stick your feet out in front of you, he said to Morrison. The man did as he was ordered, and Matt zip-tied his feet together and pushed Morrison against the wall. What about me? Decker whined. Why should I be tied like this while he gets to sit normally? Matt pulled out his dive knife, rolled Decker over onto his stomach, and cut the zip tie connecting his feet and hands. That's as much consideration you're going to get. Don't push your luck. Turning to Sam, he asked, You okay? Sam nodded and flinched a little at the pain from where Decker had hit her. I'm going to bring Carter in. Be back in about an hour. If they get froggy, shoot him, Matt ordered. He left through the back door and started up the game trail to the left of the house. Carter had rolled up against the log he'd been sitting on. He lost his hat, and his hair was matted down from the wet snow. Matt pushed him over onto his front and cut 2 of the ties, leaving his hands secured behind him. He helped Carter to his feet, showed him the Glock, and pointed back down the game trail. If you do anything but walk down that trail, I'll kill you, Matt said in a flat, unemotional voice. Where are you taking me? Carter asked. Back to the house to join your friends. The Coast Guard should be there by the time we get back. Carter slipped on the muddy game trail and fell down. Careful now. We wouldn't want you to get hurt, Matt said, helping the man to his feet that a large Coast Guard cutter could be seen anchored just offshore as the 2 men came down the hill to the back of the house. Looks like your ride is here, Matt said. He guided Carter into the house and pushed him to the floor next to Morrison and Decker. You didn't bring the body of the fourth man down with you, Lieutenant Commander Sullivan said. It was both a question and an observation. Nope. He's up on the ridge, just off the game trail, Matt answered. He should be buried, Sullivan suggested. If you want him, go up the hill and get him. If not, well, the varmints have to eat too. Matt took the cup of coffee Sam offered him. After a few seconds, he turned back to Sullivan. On second thought, I don't want his body on my property. Loan me a team member, and I'll take them up the hill to bring the body down. But we're going to need a body bag. He might be getting rigid by now. Just give the team directions and the loan of a vehicle if you have one, and they'll bring him down, Sullivan said. Give me a hand getting these three onto the cutter. Freeing their feet one at a time, but leaving Decker, Morrison, and Carter's hands secured, Matt and Lieutenant Commander Sullivan took them out to the beach where a smaller boat was waiting to ferry them to the cutter. Hey, I can't ride like this, Morrison complained. I could hogtie you again and just toss you in the back if you like, Sullivan replied. Morrison kept quiet after that. Where'd you get the cutter? Matt asked. I didn't think the Rockport station had more than 2 or 3 small patrol boats. We don't, the Coast Guard officer answered. After I talked to you, I called in the Portland-based cutter that patrols this section of the coast. Sullivan smiled. It's not like I'm going to worry about comfort for this bunch. The 2 team members came back down the hill with Wilson's body on a stretcher. They had removed the spear because they couldn't secure the body with it sticking through. They saved the spear and left it by the back door. Riding in the small boat to the back of the cutter, they handed their heavy cargo over to the crew waiting on deck. We need to take the time and secure the body so it won't move around on the way back to port, Matt told them. Lieutenant Commander Sullivan walked over to where Matt was standing on the beach, watching the cutter. Glad you and Sam are okay, Sullivan said as he shook Matt's hand. He turned to leave, but stopped and turned back to Matt. Got a question for you, though, he said, nodding. Those men couldn't have caught you in the woods. You're like a ghost in there. In fact, you could have led them around those hills until they walked their feet off. Matt smiled and nodded again. I know you hung around because of Sam, and that makes me wonder. What do you wonder, Lieutenant Commander? You stalked those men, walked right up on 2 of them, and they didn't know you were there. Why didn't you kill all of them? I know you've got the training from your Marine days, so why didn't you end it all and kill them? Matt stared across the water to the cutter anchored offshore. After almost 10 seconds, he turned back to Sullivan and answered, I'm a fisherman, not an executioner. Sullivan nodded slowly, seeming to accept this answer. Fair enough. I'll need formal statements from both of you, but that can wait until tomorrow. These men won't be going anywhere except to jail. We appreciate your help, Matt said, extending his hand. Sullivan shook it firmly. That's what we're here for. Take care of Sam, and call if you need anything else. As the small boat returned to the cutter and the larger vessel weighed anchor, Matt and Sam stood side by side on the beach, watching them depart. What now? Sam asked, leaning against Matt's shoulder. Matt put his arm around her. Now we get back to our lives. The fishing season's winding down, but we've got each other, and we've got this place. He gestured to the island spreading out behind them. It's all we need. Sam turned to face him, studying his face carefully. You really meant what you said to Sullivan, didn't you? About being a hunter, not an executioner. Yes, Matt answered simply. My father taught me that fishing is about skill, patience, and respect for yourself and for the sea and what lives in it. What those men were doing wasn't sport. It was murder, and I won't become what they are, not even to stop them. Sam nodded and took his hand. Together they walked back toward the cabin as the late afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the island that had been in Matt's family for generations, an island that had just witnessed its own version of the most dangerous game. Inside the cabin, Matt stoked the fire while Sam prepared a simple dinner. The events of the day had exhausted them both, but there was a sense of calm returning to the island. You know, Sam said as they sat down to eat, I've been thinking about what you asked me yesterday, before all this happened. Matt looked up from his plate. And Sam smiled. the bruising on her face doing nothing to diminish the warmth in her eyes. Yes, Matthew Rogers, I will marry you, but on one condition. What's that? When we have kids, you teach them everything you know about this island, about fishing, about tracking, all of it. This place, what you've built here, what your family started, it should continue. Matt reached across the table and took her hand. I can do that.